Welcome to In the Know, another episode this week discussing everything that's happening in training camp. So tune in.
The New Orleans Pelicans select Zion Williamson. And Holiday, the dribble penetration. So tough going to the goal. High above the rim to rip it down.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm joined by Mason Ginsberg and Jeremy Wilson, my partners in crime on this podcast. We don't actually commit any crimes, but we may talk about the ones that happen on the basketball court. So, speaking
That
of
was
which,
smooth, man. That was nice. I like that intro.
This is why he's the host, guys.
Yeah.
I was, you know what? I'm not going to be humble on that one. That was off the top, was not planned.
Nice.
But I was going to say, like, speaking of crimes, there's one happening, Milwaukee versus Detroit right now, 15-30.
The East is going to be so bad this year.
Yeah,
Oh, my
Washington
God.
is also getting their butt kicked. So the Tankers are getting a good little head start here in the preseason. Really, really fun. How have you guys been? What's been up with y'all? How's this last week been treating you?
Anxiously waiting for preseason basketball to start during your lunch break.
Yeah, all good. I'll have to. I'm gonna enjoy having you guys tell me if I should bother watching any of the replay after work tomorrow night. So not that I will have. There will be no shortage of TV tomorrow night between the Saints and the Yankees. So I may have to figure out the right spot for it. So if there's anything cool that happens, just, you got to point me to the right minutes in the game.
Yes, we are recording this Sunday evening. The Pelicans play basketball tomorrow, Monday at 12:30. I'll be there. I'll be in the building. It'll be nice to get back out there. Obviously, watch Pelicans basketball again, do the pre-post, all that stuff, get in the routines. And Jeremy and I will be hopping on later to do another little video podcast session on the game and things we noticed, what actually transpired on the court, who they started, which has been the topic of discussion for the last 15 weeks, it feels like. So let's dive right into it. I would love to talk about this because there's really a lot that I want to say, but I want to set the stage here a little bit. So in media day, Willie Green didn't really give an answer here or there on who the starters were going to be when he was pried on whether the matchups can change on a night-to-night basis. He said, he was basically like, yeah, like they can. However, it's very clear that he prefers to have a set rotation of starters and then adjust the rotations afterwards. And, we saw that with JV, where like JV would still start and maybe he'd still only play 3 minutes that night, whatever. So I think that is how Willie Green likes to operate. They asked CJ McCollum about his general thoughts of what role he likes to play. And, he gave an answer where he essentially said, I'm not going to volunteer to come off the bench, but, the number one priority is winning. So let's talk about that now. Trey Murphy has, since we last recorded, Trey Murphy got hurt. He suffered a mild hamstring strain. I'm told it's not like a big deal or anything, but it may keep him out the first few games in the regular season, just out of precaution. It's going to be one of those things where they're going to reevaluate in 2 to 3 weeks. And it might just be that he misses that road trip entirely just to bring him back at home, or maybe he comes back during that road trip. It's really unclear at this stage. It really shouldn't be more than those first few set of games if he's missing any. He's hurt. So that kind of the debate has been who needs to start, how the starters need to function. And it's been on two fronts. Should Daniel Tice start? Yes or no? And if he doesn't start, what should be the small group, right? Should it be the group with Trey Murphy? Should it be the group with CJ? Should it be something else entirely? So I'm going to kick it over to you guys. I've done a lot of the talking. Let's talk about CJ's comments first. Do you buy those from CJ? Do you think he is truly willing to be a good soldier, or do you think he knows just to say the right thing at the right time?
The
He's a
latter.
politician. He's
Yeah.
a politician. He's a politician. Like, I'm not saying that he, wouldn't go to the bench. But heck, he told you, like, I ain't trying to go to the bench. Like, I'm not going to put my hand up and volunteer. Now, if you ask me later in the episode, should he go to the bench? That's a different answer altogether.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I mean, look, I have a ton of respect for CJ, and I do feel like he wouldn't put up a stink if that was what he was told it was going to happen. But I think he's got enough clout organizationally, league wide, where it's not gonna that's not gonna be an option unless basketball reasons dictate that it should be. So I think to start the year, I don't see it, whether or not like Jeremy said, whether or not it actually should happen is another conversation entirely. But I don't expect it to happen to start the season. But that doesn't mean that things couldn't change if the I guess it would the Pelicans have notably been latent to respond to data to make lineup decisions. So I don't even know if I can say that it would happen, but cautiously optimistic that if what we saw on the court suggested it needed to, it would happen. It would change.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Last year, the Zion Williamson, CJ McCollum, and Brandon Ingram trio, they were about a negative 2.3 in net rating. So that's per 100 possessions in about 740 minutes or so. It was over 700 minutes, right? All season long, no matter kind of what lineup they threw out there with that trio, including the Larry version. It wasn't just the JV version. They got outscored by their counterparts on the other end of the floor. So is that enough data for you two? I'm not asking for the Pelicans, and what goes into their decision making. For you guys, do you look at that data? Do you see like, okay, it was bad last year, why risk it again this year, especially when there is a different option, right? Last year maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. Or do you feel like, well, that was last year. Now they have DeJounte. Things are a little bit different, so it's worth trying it again.
No, man, without a doubt, you're right. Like I think for two big reasons, and when like the one counterpoint you could make is, oh well, we didn't see a ton of minutes with the true small lineup with neither Larry nor Jonas, and so like I think that falls on its face pretty quickly because like you're adding a guy like DeJounte Murray, and you're not like, at least with some of those other lineups with those three guys, the other two weren't people who demand a ton of shots. Like even with Trey Murphy, like he's not someone who's needed to take a ton of shots to at this point in his career. He could be a guy who's you need him to be dynamic, but he's a guy who can help space the floor for those guys. But once you had a guy like DeJounte Murray, those shots got to come from somewhere, and so already you're talking about a 3-man group that was negative that shouldn't have been. Like those three players playing together, forget neutral. Those you would expect guys with that level of talent to be positive, like very positive. And so the fact that it's not, like the delta from what the expectation should be is significant. And so I'm very much of the opinion that that they need to do something different here.
And I mean, no disrespect to CJ. When the season started last year, he was the glue that held everything together until they figured out how to fix this offense. All right. So I'm going to say this. He shouldn't start. And the tantalizing point of Trey starting is because he's 6'3", accompanying a bunch of guys. That includes putting Daniel Tyson in the starting lineup while Trey is out. I'm willing to do it. The size plus the data shows you that those three don't work well together as a trio. So we need to break it up, even though Trey is out.
What's interesting is it goes beyond just a trio, right? When you break them apart and you do, okay, well, how did BI and Zion do without CJ on the court, right? And that is more in line with what Mason was talking about. Like they were killing it in those minutes, right? Look, not that many minutes, 350 or so, 348 minutes, not that many, but it's something worth exploring, right? And most of those units were primarily made of two bigger players on the perimeter next to them. So they had the Dyson and Herb configuration from early in the season when CJ was going through the lung issue and Trey was still not back from the meniscus issue. And then they've had iterations afterwards when Trey got healthy. It was the Herb and Trey, and then Zion, BI, and it was JV. But like in those iterations were just amazing on the court together. So I think in and of itself, like there's so many other things. We've talked about the Herb and Trey pairing, the duo, like getting them on the court together at the same time. Just there's so many data points that lead you to like, okay, there's a lot of goodness on this team. There's a lot of talent on the team. Clearly, there's a way to attempt to optimize it at least. And look, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Sure, you got to be flexible and change things. But I just don't know what it looks like if you spend, I don't know, 1,000 minutes or you spend 3 months of playing time before you make an actual change, right? Like that, we've talked about it before, is if you didn't play Garrett Temple those 1,000 minutes, maybe it's 4 extra wins, right? And you can do this at pretty much every stage of Willie Green's career. Is like when there's been a juncture to make a decision on to bench somebody or to start somebody, it's been almost always, I can't think of the only moment that I can think of that Willie Green was proactive in making a change and it really worked out for him was that first year when he decided Herb Jones is going to be a starter. And we all saw it that, Herb Jones needs to be a starter. He needs to be out there. And that's worked out for him. Every other juncture where he's kind of had to make a decision, whether it's been Devontae Graham, whether it's been Garrett Temple, whether it's been Larry, whether it's been managing JV's minutes properly, whether it's been Josh Richardson, whether it's been Gary Clark. Look at how many guys that we can name, right? Anytime Jackson Hayes in the playoffs, unable to make that change. So like, it's been a clear pattern from the organization. That is not a tough conversation they're willing to have. Right? Would you say that's fair? That's a fair characterization?
It's fair to say, and I also want to be fair to CJ because the CJ Zion no BI minutes are also super positive minutes, and they ended the season like that, and they drug themselves back into a 49-win team without BI on the court. So I don't want to take anything from CJ. Yeah, those hard conversations are as hard as me talking to my 9-year-old about going to bed. That's what it seems to be. Like they don't want to have the conversation. They just hope that they get tired and just go to sleep. That's how it feels.
Yeah, it's a good point around CJ and the other configurations too, but also just looking at the guys out there and the skill sets they have. I think if we didn't add DeJounte Murray, I think we would be having a conversation about like should it be BI coming off like the bench? Like I think it still would be CJ just based on where they are in the careers, that sort of thing. But like there's at least a conversation to be had, especially if there's no other there's no real guy who can take the point guard responsibility. So it's a good point to bring up. So I think that laundry list from Shamit there was not maybe one to.
Well, the backdrop of all of this is each player's respective contract status and their status with regards to their future on the Pelicans, right? You can make the argument, okay, well, they were supposed to trade Brandon and the decision should have been easier. But I think the direct implication based off of everything we've heard from training camp is that even if Brandon was traded for a big man that they like to start, CJ was probably still going to start the year.
Yes.
Right? So I think, the implication has been Trey was going to come off the bench. CJ is going to be a starter until changes need to be made. So that's number one. But the second thing is just from an organization standpoint, what makes this a little bit difficult for me to understand, and I wish I had a little bit more clarity on, is very clearly CJ is not going to be on this team long term. And I would wager, and this is not sourced. This is not sourced at all. I'm just looking at the numbers. That's all I'm doing. I'm looking at their contracts. I'm looking at Trey's going to get paid. I'm looking at where CJ's number is at. I'm looking at who else is on the roster. There's a very, very good chance CJ is not on this team come February, or come the trade deadline.
They just re-upped Jose. They traded for a point guard. They drafted a shooter at 13 last year. The walls are closing in that position. And I promise you, this is not a dump on CJ podcast. This is not what we want to do. But to echo what Tim Bontemps said on the Hoop Collective, the most intriguing lineup is DeJounte Murray, Zion, B.I., Herb, and Trey. And even though Trey is out, we want to get as close to that configuration as possible. We have to get the most talent playing on the team together. And love CJ. I'm not gonna say what my man McMahon said about him. That was kind of cruel, but yeah, he would be a perfect. Even if you're putting him with Jose, Jose is feisty enough where he can cover up on defense and they could have more shooters even on the second unit. He can kill that role, in my opinion, and score 17, 18 points a game, be efficient, and keep the ball rolling because he's a very good player, just not in the starting lineup.
Yeah, we were. I feel like the three of us were all like CJ was catching some unfair heat last year, and I feel like we were the ones coming a lot of times coming to the defense. So I don't feel like I got to defend myself here in the comments about CJ McCollum because it's well documented how we feel about this guy. So
I mean, look, we don't do this podcast to talk about the people that talk about us, right? We do this podcast to talk about what's going on. But from CJ's perspective, he is probably eyeing his next deal, right? He's going to be extension eligible this summer. When you accept and when you're in that stage of his career and you accept that bench player role, your next contract is never what you want it to be, right? And I think there's a real possibility that CJ is looking at like, well, cool, like if I'm still a starter by the time my next contract discussion comes around, I could be looking at 20, 25 million a year, especially with this rising cap. 3 years, 75 should like that doesn't sound like an outrageous deal at all for CJ McCollum, right? And his talents. If he's coming off the bench, he may be looking at 3 years, 45 million. And that's a $30 million gap. And look, CJ, if there's anybody that knows about maxing out your personal finances and maxing out, your time in the NBA career, it's the president of the players union. And I cannot blame him for if he has any of these feelings where he feels like he needs to be a starter, because A, there's real money on the line. B, he was the guy that sacrificed everything last year. He was the guy who's like, you know what, you two are going to fight it out for the ball. I will transform my whole game. 11 years into my career, I'm going to transform into being this elite catch and shoot guy. And he had a career year in all regards, right? He did everything that they asked him to. And because player one and player two can't stay healthy, he was always put in compromising positions. So that's just not on CJ. So I get it, man. I get why he would have a strong feeling. I just wish I understood more the organization's perspective on why these conversations are so difficult that, it gets to the point where things are too late before changes are made,
Yes.
Enough on CJ here. I felt like we covered that topic pretty fairly. They're heading into tomorrow. They haven't released an injury report yet at the time of the recording of this podcast. They haven't really released anything else that would indicate if someone else is missing a game. What they do is they send out these pregame packets, and in the pregame packets they list like proposed starters releases for the media that they send out, and they said probable starters are DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Herb Jones, Zion Williamson, and Daniel Tice, leaving Brandon Ingram off the probable starters. Now, I asked around with some of my fellow media members, and some of them were like, maybe they could just be messing around with us, knowing that this is basically I was told don't take any of this seriously or at face value. But my mind kind of instantly went to not that they're benching Brandon, but that is Brandon just gonna sit out in more preseason games because he's been known to do that in the past. And so just curious where your guys is headed is that. Do you think it's important for Brandon to be playing in these games, or do you think it doesn't make a functional difference for his outcome, whatever outcome that he's looking for if he plays them or not?
He needs to play. They all need to play. If you're healthy, you need to play. Point blank, period. Now, it'll be funny if we just did those first 18 minutes and BI comes off the bench. That would just be hilarious from a content purpose. But no, if you're healthy, you need to play. They need as much time together, especially against a different opponent, as possible before the season starts.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that way because they're integrating a guy who's going to have the ball a lot. I mean, and especially given the fact that BI didn't play in the workouts earlier this offseason. And so I feel like of all the guys who needs to get out there with DeJounte, it's him. And so I guess I'm not quite as dug in as Jeremy is saying that if you're healthy, all you guys need to play. I think I think that's true, but certain guys wanted to sit out, like worried about injuries or like play a lot less than they would. Like who am I to say the team has been cursed by injuries for 2 decades? Tell them not to, but I think Bi specifically, I really want to see him get some non-intense minutes with DeJounte and keep figuring out how they're going to work together.
Well, and the other thing is the constant reporting out of training camp has been Brandon has been awesome.
Dominating.
Brandon dominating. He's been an efficiency god. Rim and threes only. James Harden 2.0. Which outside of like the Willie Green quote and the quote from the Pelicans podcast with Gus and Todd Graffinini, and those guys are fantastic. I've also heard that from other folks in the building is like, hey, we didn't really see him take that many middies in the live action of practices. So like, what do you guys make of that? Is this here to stay? Is this the new Brandon Ingram?
You go ahead, Mason.
I believe when I see it. I'm like, it's easy to do it for a couple, for when games don't matter. All of a sudden, when you're in the moment, it's especially when you've been playing the same way you've been playing for your whole career. I mean, like I think it's really hard to change that kind of thing unless you actually like mentally commit to it consistently. And so I think we could see what CJ did last year. I think it's another way to shout out like how incredible it was. It's CJ changed his shot profile in his overall game last year. That is not easy, and so I'm glad that he's kind of like focusing on kind of stuff in training camp. I don't think it's a flip of a switch for someone like him, and so like maybe he gets there throughout the course of the season, but I don't think it's going to be just like I mean I guess maybe he did it with Stan Van Gundy, but. So maybe I'm being overly harsh. I don't know.
Not just Stan Van Gundy, to echo our friends from the wing. Contract year BI.
Yeah, that's fair.
Did flip the switch when he came from the Lakers to here.
Yep.
And now we have contract year BI again.
It's a great point.
I'm not gonna just. It's not merely I believe him when I see it, because we've also seen him become this uber efficient all-star because money was on the line. And
but we also have seen that go revert to what it was before now. So it's
a deadline league, baby. You see the deadline.
Here's where I'm at with that is if the Pelicans aren't the one paying him that contract, then you reap the benefits of contract year Brandon.
Yes,
and
then someone else give him the contract.
Maybe not the downsides. I definitely think. Look, his teammates have been on him on taking threes. The coaching staff has been on him on taking threes. He's acknowledged it many times over the years that that's something he needs to do. There's just been some sort of disconnect where it doesn't happen. It could be that again because of external motivating factors, where he's just like, no, I really got to make an effort to do this. Whatever the genesis of the change may be, I think is unimportant. But what's more important, as you guys have already pointed out, is that it happens. And hopefully it continues to happen, especially when things are going bad, right? Like what happens when Lou Dort is in front of you? How are you going to take that matchup, right? Are you
like Mason said, when rubber meets the road, are you going to take that open three, or are you going to be comfortable taking the 17-footer because everyone is expecting you and that's your favorite shot? Like that's when it's really gonna.
If there's 42 seconds left and you're down 2, what are you doing? And you have an open catch and shoot 3.
Are you gonna attack closeout and get all the way to the cup? Are you gonna just go to the cup, or are you gonna settle for your midi where you're comfortable and you're good at? I also want to. He is good at it, and that's maybe even the worst part because he can hit it. Yeah,
so those are things I'm going to be looking at because last year, they had Borrego offense. 6 games in, where's the Borrego offense? Right? It lasted 6 games, and then it's like, what happened to it? So I want to know if it sticks for the whole year. All of us are definitely going to be watching with keen eyes on the rates that this is occurring at. And look, last year, if there was a pretty clear trend on games that he took a lot of threes. It was games that they were against bad teams and they were winning. When they were,
yes.
so it's like when the pressure was at its lowest. So yeah, all these things that we've all kind of talked about. It's like let's see this in pressure moments. But any step in this direction is a positive one, and so hopefully he can keep taking these steps on a regular basis. The other stuff out of training camp has been, well, let's talk about DeJounte Murray, because he's the main guy that they've added. What I've heard about DeJounte Murray is he's been awesome, and just as a person, he's been really getting into players, really challenging them. Him and Zion, particularly, like they are, like, I don't want to say they're like lockstep with each other right now, but they're on the same wavelength in terms of we need to do this right. Like whatever we're doing together, when we're in actions together, if I'm slipping this screen, like we got to get the timing right. If I'm, curling around for a lob, we got to get this timing right. If like the pass is too low, like you got to go get it. Z, you know what I mean? There are things where Z is learning because he hasn't had a guy that can make the passes that DeJounte can make, where Z's having to form some of the habits that he hasn't had to do in the last 4 years. And likewise, DeJounte's having to figure out, how do I work myself in as a guy who's running the offense, but it's really that guy's team, and it's that guy is different than Trae Young.
Yes.
In a very, it's very different than Trae Young. So, and it's been positive. It's been very positive. Do you think this is just more, training camp, no game, 0-0, everyone, good vibes kind of stuff? Or is this kind of what you expected out of DeJounte to, like, enter the building and just let his presence be known?
You guys are going to hear this phrase said from me throughout the season. Fans, are you ready? Lie to me. Please lie to me. I want all the good news, because when the bad news comes, I'm going to expect it and we're going to talk about it. So for right now, be the leader. Throw the live passes you never thrown before. Get everything right. Get the slip screens correctly for Zion. When he's being a screener, when they're doing inverted pick and roll, I want to hear all that. I want to hear all those great things. I want to see them come to fruition, because when they don't, I'm going to expect them, and then we're going to have those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it just shows how happy he was to get out of the situation in Atlanta. Could be that simple. So I buy that he's around a lot of other talented players, and so he's probably happy to, like, was New Orleans his dream destination? No, look, come on, obviously it wasn't. But like, I feel like it's a good basketball situation, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm willing to buy it for now.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is this the most talent DeJounte's been around?
Yeah. He's never been around 5 other top 100
fair.
players.
I think that's fair to say this most talented team has been around. So he just made me ecstatic that I can pass the ball and get assists and maybe average a triple-double again without really having to score as much as I used to.
Yeah.
You may find excitement from that. He is a point guard.
That's the big one I'm excited to see tomorrow. How is he working off the main guys? What percent? He's running the offense. Are there still opportunities for Zion to get on the ball? Are there still opportunities for some of the other guys to work in theirs? And is he still taking threes at the same rate that he was in Atlanta? Look, I don't care how people shoot tomorrow. Like, the percentages don't matter to me at all. Show me the process.
About to say process over results right now.
Show me the process. But speaking of results a little bit, Jordan Hawkins has been apparently lighting it up in training camp, just burning the nets. And, that's something we've seen from Jordan, capable of getting scorching hot, and not just for a game, but like for stretches of weeks, that's something he's capable of doing. What does he need to do in your eyes? We've talked about this. Earn your minutes, young fella. What does he need to do to earn his minutes, especially if Trae's going to be out maybe a game or two here?
Man, what does he need to do for us, or what does he actually need to do for the Pelicans?
What do he need to get these minutes to stay on the court?
What needs to happen for him to break into that rotation?
One more injury, at least.
Oh no! You got
he's not taking a hammer to a kneecap.
You
got the reaction. There you go, 2 for 2.
So I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think about like who's like the guard rotation. Like, we're assuming CJ starts, and also there's going to be, yeah. I mean, like, and let's be optimistic here that we're or for his sake that we're going small here. So Jose's gonna get his minutes. Javonte Green, I think, is the backup too right now. Like, I mean, that would be my expectation. Is he's a Willie guy, like he's definitely a Willie guy, and so I think he's going to be. He's more likely to get minutes here than Hawk. So
can I make a slight butt in?
Yeah.
What if they really attack this small ball thing and Javonte's the backup 4?
Oh my God, the Bulls did that.
That's what I'm saying. He played well. Like, granted, it was Detroit, but he is a bulldog. He is grimy. Everything that you want from Najee, just because he's 6'4", he bought it.
And I'm not saying it's the wrong decision, to be clear. Like, I think Javonte should be in the rotation for the Pelicans.
Yeah,
so like and so yeah. I mean, like so I think Hawk starting out as your 5th guard, and I think just based on who's I don't know. Like, I think if they go deep into the rotation, maybe he gets run, but I don't think it's going to be consistent. That's for sure.
Hey, young fella. Keep that Dion Waiters energy going. Let him fly. Let him go in. You don't have nothing to lose right now. They didn't sign another guard. CJ on the team. Let that thing fly. Let it go in and force your way back into this rotation. That's what I want to see.
He's 5th guard. I think he'll play, just like not every night. Like, that's where I think he's at right now.
Yeah, look, I think him being good obviously helps the Pelicans because of that elite skill set that he has. It's something that the Pelicans desperately need, but also to bring the conversation full circle, it gives you comfort in comfort's maybe the wrong word. It emboldens you to maybe make a CJ move earlier on your timeline if you got someone that can. Okay, of course he's not going to be the playmaker that CJ is, or he's not going to be as shifty with the ball as CJ is, but can he give you a lot of the same catch and shoot? If the responsibilities are take 8 threes a game, and he can do that at 38% or better, hey man, especially at the difficulty that he does.
Join the Discord. We talked about that slightly in the Discord. But yeah, if you movement shooting, we don't have it. We don't have it in abundance. And if you letting that thing fly, you hitting it 38, 40% clip, you make it a lot easier to make some transactions in January and February.
Yeah. Cool. Well, before we sign off here, I want to get your guys' quick thoughts on just what's like one big thing that you're looking for procedurally tomorrow in the preseason game.
I want to see how they play their bigs, the limited bigs they do have. I mean, I want to see what that looks like if Tice doesn't start. Who else is playing? I mean, is Carlo going to get real minutes? Like, it's no secret they're thin here. Like, I guess that's like, if it's just one specifically personnel thing, is it Misi or is it Carlo who's playing first? Because I could make arguments for both. And so that's something that's interesting to me, is how they really handle, like, does anyone like really play other than they just could lean in, go super small, and other than Tyson Zion, like no other bigs get like real bigs, like they just go JRE and like whatever. So I'm curious to see how that shakes out.
This is a rather large team, and I want to see if they're going to commit to switching 1 through 5 if they don't start a big. I want to see if they allow CJ to guard Paolo, if they allow if it's Herb on Jalen and they allow Zion to go 1-on-1 on Franz. I want to see it. I want to see how the defense reacts to this team that is equipped to do everything that we hate, that we fear about being small they can take advantage of it with their length, first and second units. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Well, for me, my answer is just their offensive process. I want to know who's handling, who's getting to the paint, how many threes you're taking, what actions you're running. Are you getting the weak side involved? Are you screening off ball? Or is it more stagnant as it was last year? Is it more elbow as it was last year? Is it more, you know what I mean? I need to see improvement on offense because if the Pelicans are going to reach their full potential playing small, their offense has to be unbelievable. And I would like to see traces of that. Give me, that 14 minutes the starters play. Give me 50 points. Just go crazy. Just go crazy on offense. Especially the Magic are an elite defensive team. Elite.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right.
I will also be at the game tomorrow. If you guys see me, say what's up.
Yeah, come say hello. We'll be there. Any final thoughts, fellas?
Let's get into hoops.
Yeah.
Everybody stay healthy. Let's get some hoops going on, man.
Let's dance.